Hello and welcome to the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley's program for this week. My name is Mitty Chang. I am president for this Rotary Club. Every week we bring to you a new program about education, technology, innovation, or humanitarian service. I'm very excited this week to be introducing to you our guest speaker who comes from Inner City Advisors Fund Good Jobs, where they educate, accelerate, and invest in high-growth small businesses in order to create accessible good jobs that lead to an awesome community for all. And on the line, we have our guest, Katie Booser, who is a Senior Operations Manager over at ICA. Katie, please take it away, and we'd love to hear from you about what you guys do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mitty, for the introduction. Katie Booser. I'm currently the Senior Operations Manager for ICA Fund Good Jobs. And I really appreciate being able to be here today. I'll tell you a little bit about my story, how I got to ICA Fund Good Jobs. Formerly, we were Inner City Advisors, went through a little bit of a recombination, and ICA combined with Fund Good Jobs. They were two separate organizations, but they came together. So if any of you have heard of us, maybe, you might have heard of us as Inner City Advisors, now ICA Fund Good Jobs. More on that a little later. My entrance into the organization is an interesting one because I operated a coffee company for about 10 years. And in the early years of that company, we sought out some advising and coaching from Inner City Advisors. And I became a direct recipient of the work that we do. And through the work with ICA, at the staff, advisors, and all sorts of great resources, we were able to understand business and grow the business, which is now a multi-chain company, Blue Bottle Coffee Company, and we're Blue Bottles in Japan, in New York, in LA, just opened in Berkeley, all over the Bay Area, basically, Palo Alto, lots of places. So I left there a couple of years ago, a little more than a year and a half ago, to pursue working again with a smaller company. I really enjoyed Blue Bottle immensely. I learned a lot and occupied many different roles throughout the organization's life. My time there, from barista all the way up to VP of People Operations, and many taking care of both coasts and down south in LA, and it was a phenomenal experience, and it gave me, I think, I learned a love for operating a company, but also for the people inside of a company, what organizational life is like inside of a company. So when it came, when Blue Bottle got bigger, and I still was enjoying it, but I felt like I needed to kind of get my hands dirty again. I called ICA Fund Good Jobs and asked if I could do pro bono advising, which I did for one of our really amazing companies called Firebrand Artisan Breads. And my first meeting, I walked into a room that was filled with every type of person you can imagine, every color, every age, every personality type. It was kind of a phenomenal experience, and all in support of this small business, this locally grown small business. And it just felt right. So that pro bono advising soon became a full-time gig. So I was hired in, and I now I do a lot of different things. I'm involved in growth of the organization, so outreach to potentially, we're working on some plans, but potentially furthering, we're in 9 counties, but we're trying to further our work outside of the Bay Area, maybe nationally at some point. And so I do some of that. I also do advising still with a few of our portfolio companies. Portfolio meaning the companies we've actually invested in. And then we have a whole education kind of wing of our organization where we offer everything from a startup strategies class on how to just to even get from ideation to hiring your first employee. And then we do a growth strategies class, which is when if you're already in business, how do you grow that business? How do you hire, your next 10 people, or how do you develop your next product? How do you open your next store? And typically, so ICA, Fund Good Jobs, typically works with companies that are already in business. Like I said, we have startup strategies. It's kind of like maybe how you might get in. We develop relationships with a lot of startups. And then the real work we feel like we need to do is kind of when you're in business, you have some revenue and you're wanting to grow, but nobody will give you any money. You're just in that weird stage where you're probably not making money, but you're earning revenue, but you're probably not, there's not profit yet. So in order to grow, you need to get money. And that's a very challenging place for entrepreneurs to be in. Most of the time, you don't get money when you need it the most. So we're trying to fill that gap. And we fund anywhere between, let's say 250 to $1 million and a little bit beyond that. There are lots of really cool organizations that will do, 50 grand or so 10,000 for maybe that ideation stage where you're just developing and you're getting your product going, or your ideas going. We feel like in order to create good jobs, we need to be focusing on these sort of middle stage companies that need to take the next step to add more jobs. They also need money to go to the next step so they can add really great jobs. So when we talk about jobs, we're focused on the entrepreneur, but we really are going through the entrepreneur to create really great jobs. We've developed what we call the Good Employer Matrix, which is a kind of a complicated matrix of categories that define a job in our eyes, through our research and through our work with entrepreneurs. And that is divided into multiple categories: wages, benefits, professional development, culture, scheduling, compliance, whether that's HR compliance or other safety things, giving back to the community. So we kind of go through this analysis with one of our companies, and we try to measure where they're at on this sort of range of good employer, and all the way from when you're conceptually ready for, let's say, a real shift in your internal minimum wage, but you don't know how to do that yet. You want to pay more, but you don't quite know how to make ends meet as it is, so how do you make that happen? You're conceptually ready to add more benefits because you believe in the health and wellness of your team, but you don't quite know how to make that happen. Culture, which can seem to be this intangible sort of good, feeling. We can measure that. There are ways to do that and nurture a growing culture. And so we, again, you might be conceptually ready to do that, just don't know how. So try to make it really practical. On this tool, we go through financial modeling, we go through leadership exercises. We do lots of really cool things that help an entrepreneur, help leaders in a company understand their baseline today, and then how do they get to that next place to create a good job. So it's super fulfilling to watch an entrepreneur have like the light bulb moment when they realize that they can do things that don't cost a lot of money, or really it's about the planning and forecasting into the future so that you don't get stuck in the moment. We hear a lot of entrepreneurs, there's that tunnel vision where you're just going, and you're just opening the door in the morning and closing the door at night, hoping everything works out the next day, putting out fires, trying to make ends meet. Maybe you're not paying yourself. Maybe you have a loyal, long-time, employee who's coming to you for a raise or for benefits for their family, and you're struggling. We understand that very much because we have all experienced that, or we just, have a lot of empathy for our entrepreneurs. And so we work with every individual and unique story in order to create a unique solution. And that's just, yeah, I mean, I think that's what separates us out from a lot of other organizations, is that there aren't a whole lot of cookie cutter things that we offer, because we don't feel like any entrepreneur is the same as any other entrepreneur. And so, yeah, it's really great. And I specifically love working with entrepreneurs on their teams, on their organizational development. I work with them on everything from, I have an operations background and also a people background. So when you bring the two together and make it practical. So you need to hire somebody for a production manager role, and you also want to promote and internally and develop somebody that isn't quite there, but you're nervous because you need that person to have that skill set already. And that's a common occurrence. It's really natural. That's what a lot of entrepreneurs face in their growth stage, because they need to kind of prove in order to get money. Sometimes they need to prove that they can go to that next stage. And if you have somebody that, let's say, doesn't have that experience except from inside your company, sometimes that lends into your company from like a VC or something like that. Can be like, they don't, like, some people might not feel like you have that expertise. We want to bring in the kind of people, the kind of investors and funders, grants, whatever we can, that are mission aligned, so that you can take that person and develop them. You can create a model for internal promotions and grow somebody into, the next VP or something of your company or somebody else's or their own. The model isn't about it's about change, and how do you change and grow, and acceptance, I would say too, is part of that. Accept where we're at in business in the world, where we're at locally. So it's really great. And we created an online survey, and we've had about 80 entrepreneurs take the survey. And in that survey, the data that we collected, we discovered that almost half of entrepreneurs were paying their employees, well, actually a little more than half were paying their employees above minimum wage, what we might call a living wage, which is a little controversial, but we'll call it a living wage, especially in the Bay Area. But then only half thought that their employees were able to thrive off of those wages. So that's an example of the things we talk about, the difference between surviving on wages versus thriving on wages. We feel that, and there's tons of research out there to show that an employee who's thriving is going to be more productive, is going to add more to your company, is going to add more to your culture, because they can take that feeling of thriving back into their lives, to their families, to their communities. And that's why we do this work. And that's why we go from, a lot of people go from, into the business through the employee side. We try to challenge the entrepreneur, the employer, with creating a landing pad, a landing place for the employee, because it's as far as my experience is, it's top down, that when you create that culture, which you mean it. So you can't just say you want it, you actually have to do the work and be the leader that you talk about being. And then that's how jobs are created. If you don't take care of that part, people come and go, and turnover is really high. We all know turnover is expensive. Turnover has an impact on culture. I think it has an impact on our communities. And so we try to enter the company through the entrepreneur. There's another reason why we do that, because we also want to get jobs to people who need them the most. For instance, one of our portfolio companies, a company we've invested in called Red Bay Coffee, has a re-entry program, a pretty big one for formerly incarcerated individuals. They're a coffee roasting company. Red Bay Coffee proper only does wholesale. They only roast coffee, but they've opened up a couple of different wings of their company that are retail. But one in particular is it's really cool. It's a shipping container that's been transformed into a cafe. Every employee of that cafe is part owner. So all the profits after, I think, break even, which is coming soon, which is really great. They've been open for about 4 months. They did a Kickstarter campaign, and now they're doing a WeFunder. So what's great about that is that the money they got, they actually can break even because the money is theirs. So every employee they'll split the profits with each other once they've paid the money they paid for their product. So they'll pay Red Bay Roasting Company for the coffee, which is how Red Bay makes their money. And the retail operation will make its money from selling the coffee. And the founder, Kayla Conte, who's an amazing entrepreneur and community driver, community change driver, believes that this is the model that we should be focusing on, because it's giving back to the employee in a way. It's creating that feeling of ownership that it's hard to beat when you know when the finances are transparent, when all the internal practices are transparent, nothing's hidden. You can feel empowered to make decisions from not wasting a single paper cup because you know how much it costs, all the way to improving your customer service techniques, to marketing. When all the employees get to do that together, it teaches them, it changes the business, it changes the community. And so that's what we're focusing on, businesses who have that kind of mentality. Now Red Bay Coffee I think is an exceptional company, and there are others, Grayson Bakery. They're on the East Coast, and they make all the brownies that are going to Ben & Jerry's. Ice cream, so it's kind of modeled a little bit after that type of work where, everybody deserves a second chance or more, and that there are really good people out there who are not getting a shot. And it's formerly incarcerated, it's English as a second language, it's single parents coming back to work, it's aged out foster youth who need the experience in the workplace. It's almost anything you can think of, like maybe an older person who took time off to care for an elderly family member who needs to come back into the workforce and they're just getting looked over. We're trying to create the kind of help the entrepreneur create a culture that is welcoming and inclusive, no matter where you come from or who you are. And sometimes that takes energy, sometimes it takes money, not as much as you would think. It takes open-mindedness, it takes a certain type of leadership, it takes a commitment, it takes I think a restorative justice type of mentality, a forgiveness type of mentality, and that is not an excuse for forgiving inappropriate behavior or anything like that. That's not what this is about, and most of the time you don't find that. In one of our classes, our growth strategies class, there's a section on people, and Michael Bush, the instructor, is a phenomenal person. He's the CEO of A Great Place to Work. He speaks about hiring slowly and firing fast, and we all know this concept, but it's very difficult to do either one, especially when you already have somebody inside your organization and you know that they're not the right fit. They're just going to, they're really going to shift your culture and potentially change your product too. So none of the work we do means you have to accept things that are going to hurt your business, but it does mean you have to have a certain kind of stamina and maybe an outlook on life that is a little bit different than just, make money, sell your business, and that's who we're looking for. And honestly, no judgment either way. A lot of companies go the route of selling or changing, becoming more structured. I'm one of those people who, I don't like to say corporate structure, because I think that structure in and of itself can be a really good thing. Providing a container for the things that you want people to just know. You want them to focus on the more creative, innovative, and community and cultural type things instead of how to fill out a time off request form or your finances. Anything like that can be streamlined and structured. If that's corporate, then that's fine. I think what a lot of us mean when we say corporate, it's more the concept. I think it's more about the people, the relationships, and sometimes when the product changes. I think we get caught up with that word a little too much. But anyways, so it's really exciting work, and we, as Mitty said, we educate, accelerate, and invest. So people come into our organization by way of our education offerings. So various classes or different offerings throughout the year. Startup strategies, growth strategies. We have a path to cash, which is after growth strategies, which is a several hour session with an advisor. Each company gets to sit down and go over their financial modeling and in preparation maybe for marketing themselves for funding. That's really cool. And then we've invested in 5 companies so far, and we're looking for more. We have launched an accelerator this year, which has just started. It's a couple weeks old. We're super excited about that. It's going to be a 6 to 9 month accelerator, which is longer than a lot, but we feel that because these entrepreneurs are already in business, we want to allow them the time it takes because they're sweeping floors or making the coffee or, stamping, making the molds for whatever they're doing, or coaching, doing career coaching, whatever they do, they're doing it while they're taking these classes and involved in this accelerator. We have all our pro bono advisors. They're lead advisors of each company. There are multiple mixers and networking events. There are panels. So it's a really fantastic and high touch accelerator. And at the end of that will be an opportunity for the companies to kind of present themselves, not just to us, but to other people who want to invest in like-minded companies with a mission of creating good jobs. And so we're excited that at the end of, it'll be maybe spring, probably January, February-ish, we'll start looking at these companies that are in the accelerator to see if we can invest in them and if we're all on the right path. So that's something that's truly exciting, and we felt that the best way to put our money where our mouth is to literally put our money where our mouth is and invest in companies and show that it's possible to do these types of things. And we are always looking for amazing advisors who have great experience. We kind of are starting an interesting concept of like the peer advisor versus a professional or executive advisor. Often we get people who have been in VP or C-suite positions come in, and that's an amazing pro bono advising session for any company. And that's the kind of advising I got and coaching and mentoring, which completely changed my life and the direction of the company. I talked to VPs at Cliff Bar, at Clorox, at smaller companies. I talked to some of the most amazing people who wanted to help me learn, but also wanted to tell me some things I didn't know. And instead of kind of burning down the store, they wanted me to focus on other things. Sometimes I think you don't have to go through as much pain as you think you do. So we're always looking for amazing people to come in and give something back to the entrepreneur community. And you can do that. Go to our website, ICA, fundgoodjobs.org. There's an application. Call. Come check us out because it's a really fantastic way to get involved in the entrepreneur community. And aside from donations or coming to networking or mixers, it's all about the entrepreneur and giving back, and that's what we care the most about. It's what people walk away with that's practical. They can go back to their business immediately, start implementing, and that it will change the lives of their employees and their communities, and then create more business. So
Terrific. Thank you so much, Katie, for a wonderful presentation. You guys do amazing work, and I'm just so excited to have you talking to our Rotary Club about what ICA does, and the work that you guys do. So I do have a few questions for you, and hopefully we'll get some questions going from the audience later when this program is actually being shown, and then they'll comment below the video, and we'll probably ask you to come back and answer some of their questions. But my first question is about more of the process for how you guys choose someone to be a recipient of the grant or the money that you guys would put to a business that wants to grow. I know that you mentioned there are mentorship classes. What's the path for a small business owner who is looking for money to get there, and what are some of the requirements they need to hit, or what recommendations do you have for them?
Yeah, sure. It's a pretty organic process. There is just literally the logistics that, you go to the website and you fill out a new company application, or you make a phone call, and that might be the first touch that you have with us. And that's when we want, like, every application gets a phone call back. So everything is about the relationship. And I would say with really anything with us, with any organization, especially around money, it's about the relationship. Especially when you're talking about philanthropic money or money coming from some kind of funder that's looking for a more social justice type impact. The relationship is huge, and it can sometimes take a while, but for us, we want to hear who you are, we want to know what you do, we want to know why you do it, and we'll ask specific questions around our mission. So we want to know that you're community minded, that you have maybe a history in either through business or through other means of helping to develop a community somewhere or somehow. We really, really, really use the education pipeline as a way of getting to know people. So, for instance, our startup strategies class started yesterday. It's 3 sessions. We do it again. We all show up, so there are 12, 13 of us in the ICA Fund New Jobs organization. We are at every class. We talk to every entrepreneur. We shake hands. We want to know how you're doing. And we have follow-up calls and meetings to get to know you. So that's really the best way in, is to show up. And from there, some of the qualifications for investment are certain, you have to have employees, and you have to be you can't be pre-revenue, but we have some revenue milestones that we want you to hit, but ultimately it's about your mission. So we have companies in our accelerator currently who have 1, 2 employees or 50. And it's really about where you're going to be going over the next 3 to 5 years. We know things take time. We know that if you're going to clean up your financial models and get really tight on your mission, that's in the middle of operating your business, that can take some time. And that doesn't mean you don't get money from anybody for 3 to 5 years. What that means is that the relationship and the growth and the changes come over that time. So we have an agreement that you will grow 50 jobs over 5 years. I don't think there's a penalty for doing that, but there is there's some sharing. Either maybe there's equity, or and the equity means there's just like an agreement that jobs will be created, and if not, maybe there's an exchange of a certain percentage, a very low percentage of money that will come back into our organization that will help us to continue to help you grow jobs, something like that. But really, the way in is to make that first phone call, show up somewhere, shake our hands, talk to us, give us a hug too. We like hugs. And just tell us your story. We're storytellers ourselves. We love to hear why you do what you do, why you think that what you're doing or what you want to do is beneficial to anyone, and are you open to hiring all kinds of people, and how do you propose to do that? How do you propose to use the services that we offer? So we also, we appreciate financials that are cleaned up, but we also have have pro bono advisors who help to do that. But we do want some kind of awareness around finances. When the company I work for started to engage with ICA funded jobs, we didn't know how to read a profit and loss statement. This was 13 years ago or something. So at that time, ICA taught us many things about operating a business, and that I find that to be true today, that entrepreneurs have great ideas, they're visionaries, and they're doers, and a lot of times, again, you don't know what you don't know. So that's when you come to us, ask the questions. Another great thing about us is that if you come to us and we feel it's not a right fit or we just don't have the resource for you, we work hard to find you a resource. So we don't just hang up the phone and go, oh, well, good luck to them. We take every person who comes to us seriously. You came to us for something, and we want to provide value at every turn.
That's awesome. I love that. So a question regarding the investments in terms of the money. So when you guys, this is a two-part question. So the first part is, and I'm not too sure if you know the answer to this part, but when you guys first started off, how was ICA Fund Good Jobs funded itself? And then the question is, how is it funded now? Like, where do you guys get the money to, invest in all of these businesses? And then the follow-up to all that is, what can someone do to help out, or what can an organization do to help out if they want to help your cause?
Oh, sure. And I'll be able to answer that question probably more surface level, so I apologize for that, but I can always get back with more details. So early on, before ICA and Fund Good Jobs actually became one organization, Fund Good Jobs was its own fund. It was like any other fund, but it was made up mostly of philanthropic money, or investment money that came from people who wanted to do good, invest in companies, and didn't have some really like lofty idea of a return that looked like so many X. Like, it was really about the cause. We are now, the recombination happened, ICA and Fund Good Jobs as one organization, and we are a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. And I'm glad I got that right. That's very recent. And so because of that, we're now eligible for grants and other kinds of funding. And we're the metrics for being a CDFI are pretty heavy, so we're being held and scrutinized quite a bit, so that that we're doing with the money what we say we're going to do. And again, the money, we do several different types of fundraising, and there's the operational, general fundraising that we do for our organization, but then there's a whole other set now of fundraising that feeds the fund for companies. And so we're going for several $1 million to feed that fund so we can invest in companies, and that comes from every corner you can imagine, but from large corporations who have a philanthropic wing, or family funds that are either local or not. Kauffman Foundation, which started in Missouri, NASDAQ Entrepreneur Center, they have a really great new entrepreneurship program. It comes from all of that. It comes from our entrepreneurs who donate back into the fund. And it comes from equity that we receive from a company. There's a company called Back to the Roots, who they're doing very well, and they're one of our original portfolio companies. And it's just converting now, so it's really great, because that's the idea, is that our terms are really good, and if we invest in you, then you're committing to invest back into the work. And it's a small percentage, but it's enough of a percentage. It's enough to get to sponsor another company to get funded. So I think there's probably more to it, and I'm happy to follow up with some other details about that. But for organizations who are interested, again, it's a phone call. Talk to our development team and our CEO. He's very active in the fundraising part of our organization, because he's so connected to the work. He wants to connect to the people that want to give. So
awesome. And then just one last question for you, and also have you put any last comments you'd like to give before we close out our program. But what's your favorite part about your job?
Oh, my favorite part is talking to leaders of companies. And so the founders, yes, and CEOs, but also managers, anyone in a leadership position. I really love talking to people and about, we spend so much time at work, and there's all this, like, people are still talking about trying to find about life-work balance, and what a myth that is. And so it's not about that. It's about finding joy in your life, and work can be that way. It's okay to take a risk. It's okay to advocate for yourself. And I also know that for certain people, it's hard to advocate because that maybe your employer won't like that you're advocating for yourself. So what I like is when an entrepreneur actually like comes to life and they have that moment where they're like, oh, I can do this really amazing thing for these people and still make money and still do the thing I want to do and still have a vision, and it's not as hard as I thought. Or do a values exercise where you actually get to match your personal values with your business's values, and that connection, when an entrepreneur can really put that down on paper and make that connection, it's kind of a phenomenal life-changing event, not just for them but for their people, because then they'll take that energy back into their company. And recently I had the experience of sort of helping an owner through a kind of challenging time, and she really needed a lot of support. Just like growth, just like when a business grows and it takes all your energy, you have no time for anything else. And so even the little tiny things, just people being late to work or the van breaking down, anything can just send you over the edge. Being able to support her as she worked her way out of kind of these crisis moments, and then hearing how she was able to provide that same support to an employee who was going through kind of a personal crisis. But that's culture, and that's the kind of workplace we're going for, where you don't have to leave yourself behind. There's work to be done, but you can also be true to who you are and what's going on, because there's forgiveness, because there's just a mentality of community business together. So that's my favorite part about my job. Thanks for asking.
Sounds like a great part. Thank you again so much, Katie, for taking the time to present to us and talk to us about what ICA Fund Good Jobs does. We're very lucky to have you chat with us. So a link to ICA Fund Good Jobs will be available below this video. We'll also have some other relevant links for you guys there. And of course, as with all meetings, if you guys want to leave a comment at the bottom of this page, you'll be able to maybe ask Katie a question that you want answered, or just give us a comment about what you thought about the meeting. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. We will see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.